From a young age, Ella Carter was different from the rest of her family. She grew up in Brookdale, a fading suburb about 40 minutes outside of Denver. Their 3-bedroom cream-colored house had peeling paint and patchy grass eerily reflective of the uneven affection she received at home. Her father, Rick Carter, worked in home repair, a job that was weather-dependent and rarely stable. During the colder months, he often lingered at home, moody and irritable eyes fixed on reruns of old football games. Her mother, Linda, worked part-time as a receptionist at a local dental clinic, but often called in sick whenever her favorite shows aired or her friend group planned shopping sprees. In Ella's household, academic achievement was never a priority. Report cards were dropped on the kitchen counter and ignored. No one asked what she was learning, how she was doing, or if she needed help. Parent-teacher conferences were attended only when the school insisted. And Ella, a bright-eyed girl with endless curiosity, lived in a private world filled with discoveries she had no one to share with. She read books under her blanket using a flashlight, assembled paper and glue solar system models by herself, grew plants in the backyard, and studied photosynthesis like a miniature scientist. Her first taste of recognition came in 3rd grade when she won the science fair with a project about how different light affects plant growth. But on the day of the awards ceremony, her parents' seat sat empty. Her dad had a poker night and her mom didn't want to drive in light rain. That absence became a pattern. In middle school, Ella made the honor roll every quarter. The recognition night skipped because her parents wanted to catch a dinner deal at their favorite 2-for-1 restaurant. In senior year, she was named valedictorian, a rare feat at Brookdale High, but Rick complained about sitting through another boring ceremony with long speeches. It wasn't that they disliked her. Ella understood that. But they never made her feel like her efforts were meaningful. To them, success mattered only if it produced money quickly or at the very least didn't disrupt their routine. In the silence of that household, Ella learned to validate herself in a world that refused to acknowledge her. She studied late into the night, her mother's reality TV blaring from the next room. She rehearsed college application essays aloud while her father shouted at football players on TV telling her to keep it down. Slowly, Ella accepted a harsh truth: she was the only one who expected anything of herself. By the end of her junior year, Ella Carter had cultivated a dream no one in her family had ever dared to imagine: college. Not a local community college, but a prestigious university where she could study, grow, and reshape her future. She didn't share that dream with her parents. She already knew the answer. We don't have the money, or worse. What's the point? Ella quietly gathered applications, searched for scholarships, and received help from her guidance counselor, Ms. Ramirez, the first adult to tell her she had the potential to make it to an Ivy League school. With her support, Ella applied to 15 universities across the country using fee waivers intended for low-income students. She hid every document in an old shoebox under her bed. Every time an envelope arrived, acceptance or rejection, she opened it alone in silence. Joy or heartbreak, no one witnessed either. The day she received her acceptance to Columbia University, along with a scholarship covering 60% of tuition, Ella sat motionless on her bed, hands trembling. She was thrilled but afraid. She couldn't keep it a secret forever. Eventually, she had to tell her parents. That evening, over cold meatloaf and canned green beans, she said it. I got into Columbia, in New York. They gave me a scholarship that covers most of the tuition. I'll take a small loan and work part-time to cover the rest. Rick didn't even look up from his plate. He smirked. College is a waste. Miller's kid went for 2 years and still works at the grocery store. Linda gave a more polite smile, but her first question hit Ella like a brick. Can you take online classes so you can still help out at home? Ella didn't blame them, but her heart sank. She spent the next 3 months proving she could do it on her own. She applied for federal aid, secured extra grants, and pledged to work part-time. She built a plan step by step, like she was negotiating a contract with people who never really asked to sign. On move-in day, Rick grudgingly helped load the van. He complained about gas prices the entire 2-hour drive. Linda repeatedly said, "Don't waste money on those hoodies with logos, plain clothes work just fine." They dropped her off and left quickly, no goodbye hug, no photo, eager to beat traffic. Ella stood alone as other students smiled for family pictures and unpacked with excited parents. It was her first day at college, and the first day she truly understood if she wanted to go far, she'd have to go alone. Ella Carter's first weeks at Columbia University were overwhelming. Everything moved fast. Professors assigned hundreds of pages of reading, expected sharp analysis in class, and treated every student like a future economist. But Ella came from a different world, one where studying was a solitary act done without applause, encouragement, or expectation. Within 2 weeks, Ella secured a job at the campus coffee shop, working 30 hours a week. Her schedule became military in precision classes from morning to late afternoon work until closing, then studying at the library until 2 a.m. Meals consisted of leftover cafe pastries, watered-down coffee, and instant noodles. Still, she didn't complain. She wasn't used to having anyone in her corner. At first, people mistook her for cold or aloof. Her roommate Zoe Mitchell, a business major from Seattle with lavender highlights in her hair, once joked, "Are you trying to live like a hermit all 4 years?" But one evening, seeing Ella passed out over an economics textbook, Zoe whispered, "You work harder than anyone I've ever met." That marked the beginning of Ella's first real friendship at college. Zoe left encouraging post-it notes during finals, insisted on late-night pizza breaks, and occasionally brought back leftovers from her parents' care packages. For Ella, these gestures felt luxurious. Someone thought of her. Gradually, Ella found her tribe: Marcus Taylor, the pre-med student who memorized flashcards on the bus; Rachel Nguyen, a future engineer who could explain calculus like a bedtime story; and Daniel Reed, the accounting major who color-coded their study group schedule. They didn't just study together, they shared anxieties about tuition scholarships and distant families. With them, Ella no longer felt invisible, but her own parents remained nearly absent. During her freshman year, Ella called home weekly, eager to share news of her first A in college-level economics. Her mom interrupted to talk about the neighbor's new car. Her dad simply muttered, "Niece, don't let it go to your head." The calls dwindled to once a month, and even those often ended with "Got any extra cash?" The car broke down. Ella slowly realized that no matter how hard she worked, she would never be emotionally prioritized by her parents. But she didn't stop. She took on more shifts, added a job as a research assistant for Professor Morgan, who later became her mentor and the only adult to ask, "Have you eaten today?" Each night she collapsed into bed with sore eyes and aching limbs. But her heart stayed firm. She couldn't afford to break down. Not now. Not after how far she'd come. As Ella Carter entered her senior year, she felt both pride and quiet apprehension. She had endured nearly 4 years of nonstop effort, 2 part-time jobs, academic research, and now a prestigious internship at a fintech firm in downtown Portland. Despite everything, her GPA remained near perfect, and she was finalizing her senior thesis on sustainable investment with hopes of publication. As graduation approached, excitement was shadowed by a persistent worry. Would her parents actually show up back in January? Her mother had confidently promised, "Of course we'll be there. We wouldn't miss our daughter's big day." Ella believed her. She even booked a hotel near campus on her nearly maxed-out credit card. She meticulously planned everything, mailed embossed invitations, included maps, and dining suggestions and reserved a table at a cozy Italian restaurant, elegant but affordable. She calculated that if she picked up 2 extra cafe shifts per weekend, she could afford to treat them. Each Sunday, she called home with a countdown. 7 weeks left, can you believe it? Her mother responded with enthusiasm, but Ella noticed that energy slowly fade each week. 6 weeks out, her mom casually mentioned that her dad might have to pick up an extra shift. 4 weeks out, when Ella called to confirm the hotel details her mother asked her to call back, she was watching a season finale. 3 weeks before the ceremony, Columbia sent a reminder about caps and gowns. Ella splurged on the premium photo package, imagining the framed portrait with her proud parents. But 2 weeks before graduation, during a regular call, her mom dropped a comment that chilled Ella. "Oh, I almost forgot. The Andersons are throwing their annual Super Bowl party that same weekend. They're making your dad's favorite buffalo cheese dip." Ella tried to stay calm. "Mom, the ceremony is at noon. The game doesn't start until evening. You could still make it." Her mother hesitated. "Yeah, but the pre-party starts at 2 and it's almost an hour's drive back. We'd have to rush. And the commercials are the best part." Ella sat on her dorm floor, phone in hand, stunned. Her mother was weighing a party, one that happened every year, against the biggest milestone in her daughter's life. "Mom, this is my college graduation. I've worked 4 years for this. I'm the first in our family to get a degree. Please tell me you're not seriously skipping it for a party." Her mother sighed. "Don't be dramatic, Ella. We'll try to make both. Let me talk to your father and figure something out." That night, Ella couldn't sleep. A sinking realization settled over her. The love she'd clung to wasn't absent, just conditional, and only when convenient. On the morning of graduation, spring sunlight streamed through the small apartment where Ella Carter had spent the last 3.5 years of her college life. She woke up to silence, no messages from her parents, no congratulatory calls. Only a few texts from friends Zoe, Marcus, Rachel, and Professor Morgan. She forced down a dry piece of toast, stomach too knotted for real food. She zipped up her dress, applied light makeup, and adjusted her graduation cap, pinning it carefully against the breeze. Staring into the mirror, she practiced a smile, not for anyone else, but to remind herself that she had made it to this day. She called both of her parents one last time. Neither picked up. She left a simple voicemail. "It's graduation day. The ceremony starts at noon. I saved you seats." Her voice cracked at the end. The university quad was transformed. Purple banners waved in the wind, rows of white chairs stretched across the grass, and students posed joyfully with their families. Fathers adjusted sons' ties. Mothers dabbed away proud tears. Ella stood among them, holding tightly to the graduation ticket holder, 3 seats still unclaimed. Zoe spotted her and rushed over. She draped a fragrant white lei around Ella's neck, one her mom had brought. "My parents said you're part of our family today," Zoe said, pulling Ella into a family photo. Her mom hugged Ella warmly. "We're so proud of you, Ella. Zoe talks about how hard you've worked." When it was Ella's turn to walk the stage, her heart pounded. As she stood to join the line of graduates, her phone buzzed inside the pocket she had sewn into her gown. A Facebook notification. Her mother had just posted photos from the Super Bowl party, a table covered in snacks and red Solo cups. The caption read, "Super Bowl is better than any boring ceremony." Ella turned off her phone. She climbed the stairs to the stage, every step heavier than the last. When her name echoed over the speakers, Ella Grace Carter, Bachelor of Science in Economics, summa cum laude, the applause was sparse. But she smiled, for the official photo shook the dean's hand and accepted her diploma case with grace. From the corner of her eye, she saw Zoe and her family on their feet, clapping enthusiastically. Marcus whistled from the back row. Ella held her diploma tighter, breathing deeply to stop the tears from falling, and as she stepped down, she realized even in the absence of her parents, she was no longer alone. The evening after graduation, Ella Carter returned to her small apartment, still wearing her cap and gown, her makeup smudged from the tears she had held back during the ceremony. She didn't join her friends for celebratory dinners. Instead, she sat alone on her old couch surrounded by half-packed moving boxes. Her phone buzzed. A message from her mom. "How did your ceremony go? Did someone get a video? Your dad's back still hurts. The Super Bowl party was amazing. Everyone asked about you. No apology, no congratulations. Just a casual explanation and an empty comment." Ella typed deleted and retyped before settling on, "I really hoped you'd be there today. It mattered more to me than you realize." Her mom replied almost instantly, "Don't be so sensitive. Graduations are all the same anyway. Your cousin Becky skipped hers to go to the beach, and the dip we brought was a huge hit." Ella set the phone down, her hands trembling not with anger, but with disappointment so deep it hollowed her out. It wasn't just that her parents didn't come, it was that they didn't see why it mattered. 2 days later, as she packed more boxes, her phone rang again. This time it was her father, a rare direct call. Rick's voice on the other end was unusually cheerful. "Hey kiddo, your mom and I just wanted to check in, see how you're getting ready for that new job." Ella smiled faintly, daring to hope the call might be about reconnection, but within minutes the tone shifted. "Actually, there's a bit of a situation. The dishwasher flooded, and when the plumber came, he said the pipes are shot. We're looking at about $3,000 in repairs. Credit cards are maxed out. Your mom said with that fancy new job, maybe you could spot us." Ella went silent. No congratulations. No acknowledgement of the milestone she had just reached. Just a request for money days after they skipped her graduation. You can probably get one of those low-interest graduate loans, right? I mean, after all we've done for you, roof over your head and everything, it'd be nice if you helped the family out now. That final sentence broke something. Ella exhaled slowly. "I haven't even received my first paycheck yet. I have to pay rent deposits and moving costs. I'll think about it and call you back." She hung up before he could respond further. She sat still, phone in hand. For the first time, she fully saw the pattern she gave they took. It was never the other way around. The next morning, she walked into the University Counseling Center where recent graduates could access services for a month. Dr. Chen, the counselor, listened as Ella detailed the emotional absence, the text messages, the money request. "Ella," Dr. Chen said gently, "this sounds like a pattern of emotional neglect. Your hurt is not only valid, it's important. Now we figure out what boundaries you need to protect your well-being." Together they outlined those boundaries. No guilt-based decisions, no obligation-driven support. Ella left with a realization settling into her chest. Distance wasn't a lack of love, it was an act of survival. After her session with Dr. Chen, Ella Carter returned to her apartment in an unfamiliar state of calm. No more anger, no lingering hope that things might be different if I just try harder. Instead, she felt something solid. She owed no one anything, not even her parents. That night, for the first time in years, she didn't call home. Instead, she wrote in her journal listing everything she had given up: time, money, self-worth, to maintain a relationship that drained her. And then a single sentence: "I can't heal in the same place that broke me." At around 3 a.m., unable to sleep, Ella opened her laptop and searched for one-way flights to Portland. She remembered the company offered 2 weeks of corporate housing for new hires. Maybe they'd let her start early. She composed an email to her new supervisor. "Due to a sudden change in my housing situation, I was wondering if it might be possible to begin earlier than originally planned." By morning, a reply was waiting in her inbox. "We'd be happy to welcome you sooner." The corporate housing is still available. Let us know your preferred arrival date, and we'll handle the arrangements." Ella stared at the screen, a strange lightness filling her chest, as if for the first time in years she could breathe freely. She opened her banking app, $237 in her checking account, plus $820 in graduation gifts. Not a lot, but combined with housing, it was enough to begin. She booked a one-way ticket to Portland for the upcoming Tuesday, the earliest date that would give her time to pack and ship her belongings. The ticket confirmation email felt like a declaration, "Welcome to a new chapter." That afternoon, when Zoe returned from a family trip, Ella shared the news. Zoe's eyes widened. "That's fast," she said. "But honestly, after what your parents did, I completely understand." Together, they created a list of items to donate to incoming international students, and a few things Zoe offered to store. That evening, Ella sat in front of her laptop, typing and retyping a message she never thought she'd write. "Mom, Dad, I'm moving to Portland next week to start work earlier than expected. I'm not in a position to help with the home repairs. I need space to process everything, including your absence at my graduation. I'll send my new address once I'm settled." Within 5 minutes, her phone exploded with activity. Missed calls from her mom, texts from her dad. "So this is how you treat your family after all we've done for you." The final message hit hard. "If you leave like this, don't expect to come back when things fall apart." Ella read it, then put her phone down. But this time she didn't feel guilt. She felt free. As the plane touched down at Portland International Airport, Ella Carter sat by the window watching gray clouds drift across the Pacific Northwest sky. Her heartbeat was steady, not anxious, but calm. For the first time, she wasn't running away. She was moving toward a life she had chosen. A company driver met her at the gate holding a sign that read, "Carter, Atlas Analytics." The 40-minute ride into the city passed through soft drizzle past brick buildings, indie cafes, second-hand bookstores, and family-run bakeries. Ella sat quietly hugging the 2 suitcases that held everything she brought into this new chapter. Her corporate apartment was on the 14th floor of a modern high-rise. Hardwood floors, full-length windows overlooking the Willamette River, and a welcome basket with local coffee artisan chocolate, and a handwritten note from her manager, "Welcome, Ella. We're excited to have you join us." That night, Ella unpacked, slowly hung up her clothes, and placed her favorite book on the desk. No one rushing her, no criticism, no demands. Just herself, free, grounded, and beginning to feel like this could be home. Her first day at work began with a small orientation session at Atlas Analytics. The CEO personally shared the company's founding story with genuine enthusiasm. Ella's direct manager, Karen, gave her a tour of the office, showed her to her desk, and gifted her a welcome pack with a water bottle notebook and a list of local lunch spots. At Atlas, new hires never eat lunch alone, joked Jordan, a financial analyst who had been there for 6 months. He invited her to lunch with the team and quickly became her unofficial Portland guide, pointing out neighborhoods, tram stops, and weekend farmers markets. That first weekend, Ella joined her new co-workers in exploring the Pearl District, a neighborhood filled with galleries, garden cafes, and vintage shops. They lunched outdoors, chatted like old friends. For the first time in years, Ella didn't feel like she had to prove herself. She was seen, heard, and welcomed as she was. In the evenings, she returned to her apartment, turned on soft music, made herself tea, and stood by the window watching the river shimmer with lights. No texts from her parents. She had silenced notifications from them. The silence now wasn't avoidance. It was intention. A conscious choice to preserve her hard-won peace. When her first paycheck arrived, Ella walked to the bank and opened a savings account, allocating 15% of her income. She enrolled in the company's 401k plan despite her dad's old words echoing in memory, "By the time you use it, you'll be too old to enjoy it." Week by week, Ella built a life from the ground up, browsing flea markets for artwork, picking new curtains, buying used books on economics and fiction. She strung fairy lights around her window, planted microgreens in a small kitchen tray. Every item, every decision was a piece of a girl learning to live for herself, not for approval, not for survival, but for joy. 6 months after moving to Portland on a quiet Tuesday morning, Ella Carter saw a familiar name light up her phone screen mid-meeting, Mom calling. Her breath caught. She excused herself and stepped into the hallway before answering. Ella, its Mom Linda's voice came through, familiar but strangely distant. Your dad and I are thinking of visiting you next month. We found some good flight deals. Ella froze. No prior texts, no warning, just a declaration of intent. A question echoed in her mind. Why now? She responded calmly, I'll have to check my schedule. It's a busy month for me. Over the next few days, more calls followed, each one layered with subtle pressure. Dad says the downtown hotels are ridiculously priced. Maybe we could just stay with you, Ella held firm. My place is small, just a studio, but I booked a hotel for you near the farmer's market. It's a 10-minute walk from downtown. Eventually, they agreed. The visit was set Friday to Monday. 3 weeks later, on a chilly Friday morning, Ella waited in the hotel lobby. When her parents arrived, she barely recognized them. Her mother looked older, her dyed hair too dark. Her father had put on weight. Their hugs were brief, followed by immediate complaints about the flight, the hotel, and how confusing this city's streets are. Ella took them to lunch at a well-known local spot famous for smoked salmon. She began describing her work, but her mother interrupted to talk about the overpriced menu. Her father added, Well, you work in finance now, right? You won't mind covering a few meals. The next day, they visited the farmer's market, a museum, and the Riverwalk. Instead of enjoying it, her parents grumbled the weather was too damp, the crowd too much, and parking too far. When they toured Ella's apartment, her father frowned. You're really paying 4 times our mortgage for this. That evening at a small Italian restaurant, things came to a head. Her mother began, Actually, there's another reason we came. Her father leaned forward. Remember Johnson from my old crew? His brother-in-law's starting a real estate venture. They're looking for early investors. Just $5,000. You could probably help with the paperwork too, right? Ella set down her fork and looked them both in the eye. So this visit was about asking for money. They seemed surprised by her directness. Her mother said sharply, Don't be disrespectful. We're family. Ella replied, steady and calm. Family doesn't mean entitled. You haven't asked me once how I've been, how work is going, who my friends are, or what life I've built here. But the first chance you get, you pitch me an investment over dinner. Her father pushed back his chair. If that's how you see us, maybe we shouldn't have come. Ella nodded. Maybe you shouldn't have. After that tense dinner, Ella Carter returned to her apartment in complete silence. She didn't cry. She didn't rage. She just exhaled. Somewhere deep inside, she had known this moment would come, the conversation she'd spent years avoiding. And for the first time, she didn't feel guilty for protecting herself. That night, her phone buzzed nonstop. A message from her father, You're ungrateful, after everything we've done for you. Another one. Can you drive us to the airport in the morning? Taxis here are ridiculous, Ella replied calmly. The light rail station is 3 blocks from your hotel. It goes directly to the airport. Fare is $3.25. Then she silenced all notifications from their numbers. The next morning, her parents left early. One final message. Clearly you don't want us here. No apology, no goodbye, just hurt feelings disguised as blame. Ella read the text, then deleted it. There was no need to hold on to words that blurred the boundaries she had just drawn. She sat at her kitchen table, opened her laptop, and wrote in her journal, I can love my parents, but I can't continue letting them hurt me just because they're family. In the weeks that followed, she and Dr. Chen, the therapist, worked together to create firm boundaries. No discussions about finances, no requests for money. Monthly calls strictly scheduled, limited to 30 minutes. Any emotional manipulation or guilt-tripping, end of call. At first it felt unnatural. Ella had grown up equating love with obedience, with accommodation. But slowly she began to understand real love does not demand one-sided sacrifice. She still called her parents once a month on time on schedule. They chatted about the weather, new neighbors, and mundane topics. No more investment pitches. No more money talk. It wasn't warm or deeply connected. But at least it was a relationship with boundaries. And most importantly, it didn't hurt anymore. Life in Portland continued to blossom. Ella was promoted after 6 months joining the firm's sustainable investment team. She spent weekends hiking, attending book fairs, and mentoring first-gen college freshmen through a local nonprofit. She realized she hadn't cut her family off, she had just stopped the bleeding. As her second summer in Portland approached, Ella Carter realized she had come much farther than she ever expected. No longer the frail, quiet girl at her lonely graduation, she had grown into a woman who knew how to care for herself, both body and soul. Her mornings were slow and intentional. She brewed her own coffee by hand-played jazz or soft rain sounds and no longer rushed to prove anything. Each day she wore clothes that felt good, not to impress anyone, but to feel like herself. After work, she visited the local market, hand-picking vegetables, rice, and small bottles of fish sauce, learning to cook the dishes her mother once made, but criticized her for failing. In her tiny kitchen, she now made spicy chicken soup on cold nights. No judgment, no sighs of disappointment, just warmth and healing. Each week she carved out time to read, not to become smarter than others, but because she cherished the stillness books gave her. She journaled, recording the subtle shifts in her thinking, the old wounds that had quietly closed, and the emotions she was finally learning to name. Most importantly, she learned to hold herself both physically and emotionally. On hard days, she didn't seek outside validation. She'd brew tea, curl up in a blanket, and whisper to herself, "You did well today." Ella began mentoring younger students, especially those from unsupported families. She told them, "You don't need anyone to believe in you as long as you believe in yourself first." Her story didn't come with bitterness, but with a clear, bright tone, the voice of someone who had faced the dark and made it out whole. Some nights when the rain tapped gently against her window, Ella thought of her parents. Not with anger, but with acceptance. The sadness still lived there, but it no longer consumed her. She could see it, acknowledge it, and then keep living. Ella was no longer just surviving. She was living fully, consciously, and completely. It was a typical Saturday afternoon. Ella Carter sat on a bench in Forest Park, sunlight filtering through the thick canopy above, casting soft shadows on the pages of her book. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves. Dogs barked in the distance. Children laughed nearby. Everything felt peaceful. But something inside her had shifted. The day before, she had received a message from her close colleague, Karen. "It's my little sister's birthday next Sunday. We're having a small family party at my place. Would you like to come?" It was a simple invitation, but to Ella, it meant something monumental. It was the first time she had ever been invited to a family gathering, not as an outsider, but as someone who belonged. It had taken her years to understand that family isn't always who you're born to. Sometimes it's the people who don't judge you when you're struggling, the ones who stay when you fall, the ones who love without needing conditions. At Atlas, Ella had found those people. Colleagues who noticed when she was quiet. Friends who invited her over for dinner just because. An elderly neighbor who brought her homemade pies on holidays. A kid across the hall who asked for her help with homework and called her Miss Ella. Bit by bit, she built a small circle. Not loud, not bound by blood, but deeply connected. A family of her choosing. She remembered that day at graduation, standing alone in a sea of students embraced by their families, feeling invisible. Now she was wrapping a gift, writing a card, and baking cookies for a birthday party for a girl she hadn't met yet, somehow already cared for. The shift was profound. On Sunday, Ella brought a small present, a classic children's book and a tiny succulent plant. Karen's home was warm and cozy, and as she stepped inside, people greeted her like family. "Ella, Karen told us so much about you. You're the one who helped with her project presentation, right? Come grab a plate and join us." No one asked about her background. No one questioned her worth. No one made her feel like she had to earn her place. She ate cake, played puzzles with the kids, and laughed freely. Not cautiously, not guarded, just joyfully. As the sun dipped behind the trees, Ella hugged Karen goodbye. "Thank you for having me," she said. Karen smiled gently, squeezed her shoulder, and replied, "This is your home too now. Walking home." Ella looked up at the pale lavender sky. Something had become clear. Family isn't always where you were born. Sometimes it's where you're finally allowed to arrive, mask off, heart open. Ella no longer chased acceptance from those who never intended to understand her. She had found freedom, not just the freedom of distance, but freedom from suffocating expectations, from old wounds, from outdated definitions of love. And just like that, she walked into her future with a healed heart, a chosen family, and a life that was finally truly hers.